Right. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. You are welcome to the HR Certification Center's LinkedIn page, or those who are watching on Facebook or YouTube. Today, we have another interesting topic we'll be discussing on personal preferences and performance management. But before we jump right into it, I want to know who is joining us. So you can just say hello and let us know where you are joining us from. So I can see Safia Amadou. She says hello from Ghana. I can see Ibrahim Abdul Rahim says great. Okay, so if you are joining us on whichever platform you are joining us on, kindly just drop a message there saying hello and let us know where you are listening from. So we are live simultaneously on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So let us know where you are listening to us from and let's connect. Do well to share this broadcast with your friends, colleagues, and anyone who you believe that this discussion is going to benefit. Right, I can see Susan says hello from Accra, Ghana. I can see Pearl say hello. Right, okay, thank you very much. So I see hi from Ghana, this engineer Michael Akapo. Right. I can see Ebenezer Kojo Aqua says hello. Thelma Amate, hello from Ghana. Dennis Attison, I hope I got that right. Hello from Ghana. And Ibrahim joining from Ghana, Temale, precisely. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Abigail says hello from Ghana. Ruth, hello from Ghana. And Ashley Okine says hello from Ghana. Right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, my name is Kwabena Nyameche Dapa, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. We'll be speaking on personal preferences and performance management. This program is brought to you proudly by the HR Certification Center. Now, the HR Certification Center is a leader when it comes to human resource development and leadership development. And if you are an HR practitioner looking to get certification, you should be talking to the HR Certification Center. Our flagship program is the Global Professional HR Certifications, which are in three levels: the associate level, the professional level, and the senior professional level. If you're interested in chartering, you can call 0244 822 855. So today I'm joined here by a lady that I'll call Miss D. Let me add it to the stream right away. Right. So let me do a proper introduction of Miss D. So she has about 20 years operational experience in finance services, academia, training, coaching, and human resource management across multiple sectors in Ghana. She currently focuses her energy partnering with senior business executives to develop and execute their purpose, people, and performance strategies. Working with CEOs, senior management, and line managers, Doreen has worked as a member of the executive management team that transformed a loss making financial institution to become a profitable one, and trained over 5,000 employees in leadership behavior and practices that enabled performance and execution. She has led development interventions in a range of industries, including telecoms, agribusiness, FMCG, real estate, oil and gas, shipping, professional services, and many more. Ms. D she holds an MBA in marketing from the University of Ghana. She's a senior certified professional with the SHRM, a John Maxwell leadership team member, an OKR coach and trainer, and a certified Lumina learning practitioner. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for today is Doreen Baffo, who I will affectionately want to call Ms. D. Ms. D, you're welcome.
Thank you, Kwabena. Once you call me LinkedIn, it means you're a member of the fraternity. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Fantastic,
Super,
fantastic.
super.
All right, it's good
So how? Yeah, yeah,
to be
you
here
go
with
on.
you.
Say
Now, I was
again.
saying it's good to be here with you.
Sure, sure. It's good. It's good to also have you here. How has your day been? I think we are almost closing the week. How has this week been so far?
This week has been a very busy one. Like
Mm,
a lot of people in different organizations in Ghana,
yeah.
this during this period we are closing a number of performance conversations and
Yeah.
starting new ones. So it's been a
Mm,
very difficult, a very busy period, but
mm,
it ties into what the conversation we're going to have today. So
yeah.
excited about it.
Super. Miss D, do you ever get less busy?
That's a good question, eh? No, I'm going to make time this weekend
Mm-hmm.
to to rest and recreate. I'm going to be very deliberate about it, to rest and to recreate. Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to bring us a lot of quality content after you
Yes.
come back from recess.
Yes.
Super.
A number of ideas will come up. So
Super, super. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want this program to be very interactive. So, as Ms. D takes us through personal preferences and performance management, do want to drop your questions. At the end, we'll take all your questions, and I'm sure probably as she's going through and she finds any questions she wants to tackle in her presentation, she will do that. So, feel free to ask your questions. And we are looking at this topic because we want to explore how to leverage our personal preferences and style to navigate performance conversions. So, Miss D, you have the floor.
conversations.
Conversations, yes,
All right.
performance conversations,
Okay.
right.
All
So,
right.
you have the floor.
Thank you, Kwabena. I'm just going to share my slide if that works. Let's see. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So there we go. Good afternoon to everybody who's joined us, and I'm delighted to be your facilitator, your learning facilitator this afternoon. So, this afternoon, we are looking at how our personality, our individual preferences, and style influences performance conversations. And we'll be attempting to answer to the question, how can we as individuals and as leaders leverage on our knowledge of self and the knowledge of our team members to make performance conversations as useful as they can be. And it's such great timing because in a lot of organizations in Ghana around this time, what's happening is that we are closing the annual performance conversations from last year and then setting the traditional goals as we know them, or KPIs for 2023. For those who use the agile performance management structure instead of a traditional one where we set and review at a particular time, those who use the agile one who have a lot more frequent conversations and frequent check-ins, this would be the period where they are about to have the check-in for the month of March, and also get ready to be closing what March looks like, or what the quarter looks like for first quarter 2023. So, irrespective of the performance management approach that you use in your organization, today we just want to deliberate on, as leaders and as followers of leaders, how can we leverage on the knowledge of ourselves first, and then the knowledge of others to influence that conversation or the various conversations we have throughout the performance management cycle. And once I mention the performance management cycle, I think that it's just in order that I share what it typically looks like. And there's a bit of shift, forgive that, but typically you would start every performance conversation with planning and agreeing what it is that we want to work towards, agreeing, planning towards what will make us great, what will keep our lights on, but also what will transform our business. Then once we agree what those standards are, the performance standards, the behavioral standards that we want to look out for or we want to work towards, we don't just leave them there. We go into a conversation regularly, check-in conversations where leaders and their direct reports have conversations on where they are at on the journey, what support they need, what could be better, and all of that, what's working, what's not working. And then out of that conversation, you often have what you call developing, or what it is that you can do as a leader to support your direct reports do even better. So, what are some of the areas that your direct reports need particular interventions to make them do better? The aim is to help individuals move as close to what we set out to do in the planning phase as much as possible. Then, at particular times, for some organizations, it's once a quarter. For other organizations, it's twice in the year. Some organizations are here also is once in a year. But at some point in the period, we will sit down and actually rate or appraise by indicating scores so that we can benchmark and measure the differences between departments, measure performance within interbusiness, how we are each supporting each other, who is doing better this year, whose performance is changing, is becoming better from what it was last year, so that we can make some comparative. We can have some comparative conversations. That's where the rating is. And for a lot of organizations, we are currently in that rating phase. And then ultimately, all of this dovetails into rewarding, and it just continues like that. And you will realize that anytime that, or from my experience, anytime we meet with leaders and we're having a conversation, what are some of those conversations that you consider difficult conversations to have as a leader? One area that consistently comes up is engaging direct reports around performance conversations during the check-in period and during the rating period, especially when the leader has to give developmental feedback. And sometimes when the leader or the direct report does not feel very confident or comfortable with with delivering news that may be unpleasant, or checking particular behaviors that they know they need to have a conversation on, but somehow they're not too comfortable in having that conversation. So sometimes they defer what they need to do, and it's often because there's there's um there's an inability to influence for connection. Typically, you want to connect before you influence, and that connection can be hard when we do not first understand ourselves, how we show up as leaders, and how our direct reports show up as individual brands. So that's the conversation we want to have today. Typically, in every team, and forgive, I don't know if on your end is also showing things are lying on top of each other, but on my end, I see that happening here. I'm sorry if that's what you see. But typically, in every team, you will find that there's a diverse collection of individuals, and there's the obvious ones that we see, as in terms of gender, tribe in Ghana, in terms of age, the Gen Zs, the Gen Xs, the various Gen Z generations that come together in the workplace. There's that unique gathering of different individuals in every team. But today's conversation is not just about those traits that we can observe. We can tell that, oh, this person is male or female, or this person is from this generation, or this particular age bracket. We're talking about those qualities and traits that, as individuals, we come into a space with, that influences how we have conversations, our reactions to situations, our natural inclinations and choices. And those put together is what you would call deep diversity in the language of Lumina. And I'll tell you a bit about the model I'm using currently. So we're looking at how these deep diversity traits will affect our conversations during the performance management cycle, being during the monitoring phase or during the rating phase. What it is that we need to look out for, we need to be aware of first, but also look out for, so that we can now influence, or we can now connect for to be able to influence the performance management process. So remember this: we're looking at deep diversity, those things that are not obvious, but however influence how we show up, how we have conversations, how we handle difficult scenarios, and our natural responses to situations like performance management conversations. So I guess the question that I would want to ask would be, now that we understand that beyond looking out for the obvious diversity indicators in the team, now that we know that there are deeper ones that influence how we show up, the question that I would want to ask would be, as leaders on this call, to what extent would you say that deep diversity affects performance conversations? And once we answer that question on the extent, what is it that we think we can do about it? So, question number one: given that in every space there are deep diversity representations, what do you think is the extent that this deep diversity, how we show up, our personality, how does it affect performance conversations? And once we know how our personality, or our natural qualities, inclinations, once we know what they are and how they affect performance conversations, how we approach performance conversations, what can we do to influence the outcome that we're looking for during performance conversations? So that's the crust of what we'll be focusing on from here. And again, I see that it's not showing the way I thought that it would show up, but forgive me if you see it not exactly how I wanted it to show. But I'm sure that the slides are more obvious than I see them on my side here.
Yes, they are. They are.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the first thing that we can do as leaders is first to understand ourselves, knowledge of self. As a leader, what are some of your strengths? What are some of your unique qualities that can help you navigate the performance, that can help you navigate performance conversations easily. What must you know about yourself? What do you already have that you can leverage on? And what are those areas that you must or you would want to grow in, or you want to do more of, so that, or become more of, so that you can lead performance conversations in your space? The conversation must always start with yourself. Again, even if you look at the framework for emotional intelligence, it always starts with self-awareness before you go into self regulation or self-management, right? So before to 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 influence or to connect with your direct reports, to be able to influence performance conversations, you first want to start with knowledge of yourself. And there are different models that organizations use to support their leaders to do this. I am certified to use the Lumina Spark model, and I'll walk you through, I'll just give you a visual representation of that today and how it can support you as a leader in knowledge of self, but also becoming aware of the different the diversity in your team and the differences that each individual member of your team will present, so that now you can influence, you can have more purposeful conversations, and you can understand how people show up the way they do during moments that they consider stressful, or moments that they feel or think that they are on the spot or need to defend or need to express their contribution to the business. So first is knowledge of self as a leader. But then the next thing that you want to do, and again, this model is a model that we use for in Lumina Learning for, excuse me, just 1 minute. So this is the framework that we use in Lumina Learning, the 4 steps that we go through to work together first after understanding ourselves. So first, we want to know ourselves. We also want, once you've mastered self, or you have awareness of yourself or expanded awareness of yourself, it suddenly opens your or expands your awareness to recognize the different representation on your team. So now you're a lot more open. You can almost begin to sense how people are similar to you, or how they differ, and how different your approach to communication, for instance, may not necessarily be working for them. Once you have that self knowledge, going one step further to begin to now appreciate how different we are and how differently we show up in the work scenario becomes easy. And that becomes our second step. But once we appreciate the second step, now how do we now begin to build rapport? How do we connect so that we can influence? Is the next ladder, or the next level on the ladder that we want to get to. First, I know myself. Second, I appreciate the diversity in my team as a leader. I know that I need to connect differently with the different people on my team. And so it cannot be one size fits all conversation during the performance check ins or during the written period. First, I must understand how I communicate, but I must also understand what will work for the one that I am sitting in the performance conversation with, so that I can build rapport that enables us to co create results. So it always will start with yourself. But because we are working in an organization where performance is critical, it doesn't end with knowledge of myself, knowledge of the other, so that I can connect and influence through rapport building, so that we can create the results that we have both contracted as leader and direct report to work on. So that's the model we'll be basing our conversation today on. And so remember, these 4 steps is the Lumina learning module. These 4 principles as we go: first, self-knowledge, valuing deep diversity, knowing others, and understanding that our communication preferences our responses will be different, and using that knowledge to connect so we can influence the outcomes that we want to see. Once we have those 4 principles, let me share with you how Lumina Learning or the Lumina Spark model, how it guides leaders to have those conversations or to appreciate the deep diversity on their team so that you can now begin to use that, leverage on that to have conversations that change things in your space. So in the language of Lumina, and I know that if we had to go around and have a conversation, an open conversation around the people represented on the stage, we can ask them different personality indicator assessments that they have taken. But in the language of Lumina, the Lumina model says there are 4 colors that we all need to be aware of, and these are the 4 colors just help us remember. When I was growing up, there was a cartoon series called Captain Planet. I don't know if it still exists, but there was Captain Planet.
Yeah, it's no more there now. I don't think so.
Okay. All
But they
right.
have newer ones.
I'm sure. And on Captain Planet, what often happened in Captain Planet was that one individual or one of the planeteers will observe a challenge, an environmental challenge in a particular area. And it was often around earth, water, fire, and air, I think. They had energies or strengths in particular around these 4 elements that I have mentioned. So one planeteer would observe a challenge and on their own, let's say Earth realizes a challenge on their own, they try to solve it. Or air experiences a challenge on their own, they try to solve it, they are unable to solve it. And at a point, they realize that the only way they can solve the challenge is for their powers to combine. And when all 4 powers combined, as an earth, water, fire, and air combined, then Captain Planet emerged. And once Captain Planet emerged, Captain Planet was able to solve the problems that individually they couldn't solve. It was until I grew that I realized that cartoon was talking about interdependence and how when we observe our unique differences and come together to work together, then our own Captain Planet will emerge in the teams, and then we can solve different challenges or we can achieve our desired objectives in the team. So in the language of Lumina, the 4 colors will now represent those elements, or if you want to remember, would be those elements. So there's green, yellow, red, and blue. But it doesn't end there. It extends into 8 aspects, and those 8 aspects are represented around the never-ending circle or the mandala in the language of Lumina. And you find that the colors blend into each other. So from inspiration-driven as one aspect, you go into big picture thinking. You have extroverted, outcome-focused, discipline-driven, down to earth, introvert, and people-focused as the 8 aspects. And these 8 aspects now dovetail into 24 qualities that all you find around the mandala. And when we talk about, because we are also very dynamic, for lack of a better word, complicated individuals, we show up differently in different spaces. So there's who we are at our core, one persona. There's who we are when we are we are taken into or we observe when we think that we are expected to behave in a particular way. So who we show up as every day, and then there's who we become when we are triggered. And in the language of Lumina, you explore those 3 personas as well. And it's important that as leaders, we remember the 24 qualities and then the 3 personas that we may show up with during our performance conversations. First, as leaders, but also where our direct reports of how our direct reports often show up at work, so that we can begin to connect, so we can influence or build rapport, and then co-create the results that we want to see. So if you look at this mandala that I have plotted on the screen, I'm creating a representation of my team. And assuming as a leader, I am sitting on one side, let's say I'm the one sitting around the discipline-driven part of the mandala or the circle that you see on the screen. And I have a direct report who sits right opposite me. So let's say I'm right here down to earth. but I have a direct report who sits opposite me. And so I show up wanting with a lot of caution, or with a lot of the quality of being cautious. I'm one that is evidence based, but I'm leading someone in a conversation who is more imaginative, conceptual, and radical. First, I must understand what my strengths are, how I like to have conversations. But it doesn't end there. Remember, that's principle number one. The second principle is now to value the different representations on my team. And if I look at it, my team currently, we are spread all across. So once I appreciate that actually how I communicate may be very different from how they communicate, then I can make choices. I can say, okay, in the conversation, let's say my direct report is one that it's demonstrative, like when they speak with their whole body, but I am one that is measured. If I'm happy, you can't tell. I say things like, I'm really, really happy today. Whereas my direct report goes, I'm super excited today. I do know that if our conversation during the performance, anytime we're having a performance conversation, if they are excelling, they will show up really excited, animated, and I will see it. And if they're not, the performance conversation is not going in the direction that they expected to go, I will also see it, because then they will show up ready for to challenge the facts that I bring to the table, and I must be aware of that. So, as a leader, I must have my facts right. I must go into that conversation putting my emotion in check, because my direct report is going to show up in a very triggered state, ready to have a conversation in a very tough, argumentative way when they're triggered. Or and I, as the leader, must be ready to navigate to first to appreciate where they stand, but also, in spite of that, navigate the scenario and the conversation to a point where we achieve the results of the day. The results of the day may well be first helping them appreciate what their performance is looking like now, what you can do to support them, what changes you would want to see, and then leading that conversation as a leader, using involving them using questions. So, first appreciating, I can understand where they are, but also asking for their input on what changes they would like to see, and how they can change the trend that you see, or what they can do more of what you see. So, first, understanding, having self knowledge first as a leader, but also remembering that in your team is diversity, and the diversity is deep. It's not just about gender, about religion, about tribe in the space, or age, but it's also about those things that we do not see, these natural inclinations and preferences that we have. And remembering that as leaders or as individuals, we have a choice, once we know ours, to now say, okay, now that I know, what must I, how must I show up in the conversation with somebody who is my psychological opposite, i.e., processes information in a very different way than I would process, or somebody who is a lot like me. Say I'm one that likes a lot of data. I want to I want facts to help me take a decision. And I show up in a space with someone who does not have want for all of that. It's will go with the flow as they are inspired. How can I, as a leader, with that, knowing them now, steer the conversation in the space during the performance conversation for us to get to our objective? And our objective would differ from time to time. So if it's a check-in conversation, it's how I support them, how they move forward in spite of where they find themselves, um, what interventions that we can jointly co-create so that there's growth, or there's improvement, or that we continue on the trajectory that we are on. But knowing that when it's not, the conversation is not, the performance is not going in a way that the direct report or that they expected, that it can show up in their triggered or overextended state in the language of Lumina. And for us as leaders to be able to first manage ourselves, so that we can move our direct reports into a state where, uh, in spite of the fact that they've shown up, they're feeling uncomfortable, they're feeling triggered. They can still show up in a way that uh, we're able to navigate the conversation to a conclusive end. So in the first cycle or the mandala, I showed the qualities when we are all in our when we're using them effectively, when we are not triggered. So we saw things like tough, we saw qualities like measured, we saw qualities like radical, imaginative, we saw qualities like I think I've measured already and all of that. When we are triggered, we see the ineffective usage of these qualities. So you find someone who is measured, showing up now as detached and aloof, for instance, or you see someone who is who you'd describe in the effective state as taking charge. They'll now show up as controlling. So when they are triggered and they find themselves, your direct report now wants to control the situation. You'll find that if they are in a conversation with you, their voice may be louder than yours. If they are showing up as overbearing, they want to be the one that has the last say. But remember, as a leader, that you're trying to steer this conversation to in a way that enables you influence for performance. So it's first appreciating that as a leader, they show up very differently from you, and sometimes how they show up may even trigger you. But when you are aware, then you can now regulate. So being aware of the fact that actually in this conversation I'm going into, it's possible that my direct report will show up in a very overbearing, controlling manner, but I'm the one navigating the terrain when we find ourselves in that conversation, so that I gently steer the conversation. I manage myself not to to let his or her triggered state get me steering away from why we've gathered. But anticipating that this person will come in like that, being ready for that, so that now I have the power of choice to say, in this conversation, this is how I'm going to show up. So that I am sure that at the end of the conversation, what it was that made me set up that check in conversation or that performance appraisal conversation is still achieved. So, self knowledge, I know myself. I'm also really aware of my direct report. And because I'm aware, I'm valuing the diversity by first understanding them, then I can connect with them to build rapport. And it's only when I've built that rapport that I can influence the conversation so that jointly we can co create the results that we want to see. But it must always start with knowledge of me first as a leader. So, if you think about the performance management cycle or the process, and you think about the number of conversations and how communication is such a deep part of that process, it, it is critical that every leader must go through that journey of having of being deeply self-aware of themselves, the qualities that they bring into that space, their preferences, their natural preferences, how they communicate. But then it doesn't end there. Once you as a leader you figure that out, then you also want to appreciate the diversity represented in your team, because appreciating that diversity will help you build those connectors that enables rapport and enables you to influence whatever conversations you're having during the performance management cycle. And it's when you do that that, irrespective of our diversity, we can come together. That's inclusivity, right? We can now come together to say, yes, we're different, but we can come together and say, in spite of our differences, this is how we'll all use those differences to create the team that we want to see, or the climate in the team that enables us to thrive and deliver on the objectives of the business. So I hope that this short conversation on how I show up and how my direct reports show up and how it influences the conversation will begin to guide you as you go through this match process in different organizations where we are having the closeout conversations from 2022. It would be nice to hear your feedback, what one lesson you picked from this very short conversation, what you want to know more of in the comment area so that we can deepen the conversation with the period that we have left. So, Kwabena, over to you.
Thank you very much, Doreen. I've always believed that as a leader, there are lots of nuances that come with managing personal preferences, and things like the concepts that you've brought up for help you to measure those nuances and make it much more easier. I like the hierarchy that you gave that started from I
Self
think
knowledge?
self knowledge. You know, when you understand yourself better, you tend to appreciate people, and
Yes.
you tend to see how you can complement each other in loggerheads and trying to prove a point. And the end part of it, co-creation. I feel that sometimes we always want to do things and stand out by ourselves instead of rather understanding people and working together. And I've noticed when you work with people and they feel you are genuinely interested with them, that's when the rapport has been built. You really have very good performance um, being put out. I mean, the execution becomes way better when the rapport has been built. So this hierarchy is great. Self knowledge, valuing deep diversity, building rapport, and co-creating results. And it's really an ongoing process because we always tend to find new things about ourselves. We tend to learn new things about people, and this is great. For me, I've learned a lot. I'm going to really use this hierarchy in managing my team, and I'm going to use it as a going concern, not just as a project. You know, sometimes it's like when it gets to that time of the year or the quarter when you have to do performance management, then you tend to rush through these things just to tick the boxes, you know. But if it becomes a going concern and you do it consistently, it makes you a better manager and a leader. So thank you very much, Doreen.
No, you're most
This
welcome. And that module is the Luminal Learning module. I love the Luminal Learning module because unlike other personality type indicators that will try to type you into a box to say you are at this or you're at that, Lumina doesn't do that. Lumina say will look at you, all right. So you see those 24 qualities that I shared with you. When
yeah.
you take the Lumina questionnaire, you realize that somehow you show forth with almost all of them. Is the
Hmm.
extent to which you use these qualities.
Yeah.
Depending on the extent to which you use a particular quality, you find yourself on one part of the circle or the other. But the
Mm.
beautiful thing is knowing that I don't have to be considered an introvert or an extrovert, but I may have both and it's okay. Or I may show
Mm.
forth as both in different circumstances. For me
Yeah.
as a leader is to appreciate how do I show up at work? Which qualities do I bring to the space? How about my direct report? Now, how
Mm.
can we now use those qualities to deliver on the objectives that we have set for ourselves as a business? So
Yeah.
you're right,
That's
Kwabena. It's a daily process.
Yeah, yeah. It's even better that it doesn't box you. You know, sometimes the names and the titles that we give to people when it comes to understanding their personal preferences
No
make them
labeling. No
behave in a
labeling.
particular, you know,
No
in a
labeling.
particular, the person says, I'm a choleric, so he has to behave this way, you know. But
No.
I feel this is
No
this is
labeling.
yeah, yeah,
No
yeah.
labeling.
Okay, so let's hear from our audience online. Let's see what they have to say. A few messages coming here. This I think I've read. Okay, Rebecca says hello from Ghana. Rebecca Okine, well done, Doreen. Um, Pearl says hello, Pearl Dogbache. Justice says from Accra. Clara says hello, joining from Ghana. Eunice says hello, I'm joining from Accra. So we want to hear from you guys. We've been speaking. I mean, Doreen has been Miss D has been speaking on personal preferences and performance management. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you too. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Do you have
Kwabena, I
any
think we should. I think the question we probably want to pose, Kwabena, would be for the members on the call to share with us to what extent they have or what areas they struggle with when it comes to having performance conversations, uh,
Okay.
and and then we can use that to have a conversation. Is it what do they struggle with when they need to have a conversation with a direct report? What do you struggle with the most? So that would be
Okay.
the question that we can have a conversation around.
Okay. Then let's get the comments coming. So as they come, we'll read it out.
Sure.
Rebecca says, Kwabna, your thoughts are on point. Right. Thank you. I was just reporting what Miss D had said. So yes, let's hear from you. What are the difficulties? Okay, so Kofi says, how is this different from the insight discovery type, please?
I think Insight is an amazing tool as well. I've been privileged to take the Insight as well. So if you've taken the Insight, the good thing for me, irrespective of the one that you take, for all of us on the call, just look out for one that does not say you are at this, but exposes you to the various qualities that you show up in, and enables you to with the tools to to flex the qualities when you need to flex them. So in the language of Lumina, we'll say to amplify or suppress so that you can win or you can influence in a conversation. All right. So insights is also such a good one, Kofi, and I'm glad you asked that. If you've taken others, for the people on the call, hit the chat area and share which of those self-knowledge tools have helped you best so that we can all learn from you.
Right. Thank you very much, Miss D. So yes, let's hear from you. Adam says, great presentation there, journey from Tamale. Right. Laurentia says, or she's asking, can you please repeat the learning model? Let me put this.
Okay. Yeah.
So he asks more. So the first is self-knowledge. Please assist with the remaining three.
Sure. I'm sure there's the those four principles for
Yeah.
the Lumina principles is what I'm sharing. So it's self-knowledge, valuing deep diversity. So first I understand myself. I know my preferences. I know my trigger points. I know my qualities. Then once I know that, take it one step further to appreciate the collection of deep diversity represented in my team. Then I go one step further to say, now that I know, how can I connect so that I can influence? And that's building rapport. It's and we're doing that so that because we are working together, we are co-creating results that we want on our team. So those are the other three, as asked by Laurentia. So self, others, build rapport, and co-create results. Okay.
Great. So we have in here. This is quite a long one. Experience with diversity. I got employed and asked to come for training, but I felt I was treated differently because of where I was coming from. That's Tamale. And also, I felt so bad, but I just said to myself, I know why I'm here. This has really opened my eye with regards to diversity as an employee,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you for sharing that,
I
Ibrahim.
think
And
he's sharing his experience has
yeah,
helped. Yeah.
I'm really sorry that you felt excluded. And often in a team, once I do not feel seen and heard, then that engagement that enables me to go one step, as in 10 plus one, is not there. But when I feel seen and heard, and often it's not only the based on physical things
Mm,
like I'm a woman or I'm from this tribe or I'm this age, but it's often when how I like my responses are acknowledged. You communicate with me in a manner that I want to be communicated with. You show that you understand me. Then I feel the edge to go 10 plus one, you know, and that's when we say that engagement in the team is really beautiful. So thank you for sharing your experience. And I think it's a call for all leaders on the call to see and hear their direct reports because then it makes the performance conversation really, really easier.
Dorian, I want us to look at this when it comes to valuing deep differences or deep diversity. How do you really draw the line between appreciating essence and actually judging the person? Because some people feel that some people are actually judging you, but they think they understand you. You know, that you are different. Obviously, there are things that make you different, but in the way they communicate to you, you feel more judged than appreciated. So, how can a leader, value the diversity without necessarily judging the people they work with?
I think that's a beautiful question, and I've forgotten which leader said this, but there's a common saying that we don't see the world as it is; we see the world as we are. So often, and I use this analogy, assuming that the spectacle I'm wearing, the glasses I'm wearing right now, the lenses are tinted blue, I will see the whole world as blue. And if somebody showed up wearing red and the one said to me actually that the whole world is red, I will argue vehemently on why and how I know that the whole world is blue. And often we project ourselves onto others to say because that's what we see, and it becomes our worldview. So we think that's how things should be. So self-knowledge, the first two steps, self-knowledge and valuing deep diversity,
Yeah.
is what exposes you to that opportunity to expand your awareness to say, actually, sitting right opposite the spectrum or that circle are others, and there's nothing wrong with them. That I fold my hand left over right and that they fold their hand right over left doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. They're just different. So, as a leader, how do I now bring these individual differences and include them, or for inclusion, so that we can work together? So, it's not enough to know. Once you know, the next step is to act on it. And a lot of skills are at play here. How do you connect now that you know? You know, how do you always remembering that your worldview is not the total worldview? And bringing others on board because you want to build a ready bench of other leaders who can take over the business when you're not available. So there has to be some intentionality in that conversation once your awareness is expanded.
I like that. Once your awareness is expanded, there has to be some intentionality. Sometimes I feel that the thing that really makes a difference is the exposure. People are just used to one side fits all too much, and they have not seen enough to appreciate really what is happening. Kofi says that, okay, I have learned a lot. It really helps to use emotional intelligence in working with one's team, regardless of their persona or the organization. And
Yeah.
Adam Swale says, yes, Miss D,
No, and it's beautiful. He mentioned, I think the one, I think it was, no, it wasn't Adam. Somebody mentioned the one that the conversation that just passed the screen was on emotional intelligence. The beauty of this model is that it actually links to the emotional intelligence framework, because emotional intelligence will always start with self-awareness, then regulation or self-regulation. Now that you know, how do you amplify or suppress so that you can influence? Then it moves from, so that's level one. Then
yeah,
it goes into social awareness. You know that there are people who sit on the opposite side of the mandala from you or who have different qualities from you. How do you regulate yourself so that you don't take over the conversation in the room, but you include them? You know, and once you do that, you also now want to build relationships so that you can co-create. So I'm happy that Kofi Doche mentions that because that's actually the model
yeah.
that we're looking at.
So let me take this last comment and then we'll wrap up. So Adam says, where I work under safeguarding and ready. That's respect, equity, diversity, and inclusion policy. Everybody is given the platform to connect unless you have decided to be isolated. Or you have decided to isolate. Yeah. Okay. That's
That must
interesting.
be a very beautiful organization.
That's
I
interesting. Let's
am,
take from Angela.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, let's take this from Angela. I like what you said about projecting oneself onto others. It's interesting how we all want to be accepted as we we all want to be accepted as we are, but don't want to accept others how they are too, and learn to work around and with their differences. Right,
yeah.
right.
How so
We
true.
sometimes expect everyone to be like us. Of course, not everyone can be like us.
True.
Yeah,
True.
yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an interesting discussion on personal preferences and performance management. I always tell people that performance management is not just a thing that we do, or leadership is not just a thing that we do. There is a science to it, and you have to invest into these things. And one of the programs that you invest in is professional or the global professional HR certifications. If you are here and you're an HR practitioner, and by large, by and large, we are all HR practitioners. There's much people, and we work in teams. So it's important that you take up programs like this, like the professional HR certification program. And we also have other executive short courses, like one coming up from the 27th to the 31st of March, which is an executive short course on labor relations. We'll be looking at the managerial and legal aspects of employment contracting, employee disciplinary systems, managing redundancy, unions and negotiation, employee or employment terminations. I want to invite you to be part of this executive short course. Is at a fee of 2,400. You can call 0244 122 855 to be part of this. On all our social media platforms, people are concurrently listening to me now from Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We share value on all our platforms, and these are some of the programs that we have. So do well to follow us, and you can also subscribe so that anytime that we put out content, you are able to see it so that you can participate in them. Miss D, let me take your closing words and then we'll call it a wrap.
Sure. I guess to wrap up today's conversation, Kwabna, I want to remind everybody on the call, whether you are a leader or you are an aspiring leader or you're learning, you're an individual contributor, you don't have anybody reporting to you, to remember that one of the ways to connect with individuals and influence so that you can do anything together, you can co-create results together, is first to understand yourself, but value the fact that others may be different from you and that there's nothing wrong with being different. It's how you influence that diversity by connecting. And one way to do that is it's through communication. But communicating with people from where they are, not just how we think we want to be communicated with. So understand yourself, understand others, build rapport or connection so that you can influence for the results that you want to see in the organization. Thank you, Kwabna, for this opportunity, and I wish everyone well.
Thank you very much, Ms. D, for you brought to for a lot of experience. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, she has about 20 years working experience. And when I have thought leaders or professional speaking, especially those who've had a lot of experience, I tell people that they have just combined so many years into how many minutes? So we have been here for like 56 minutes. So 56 minutes. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for what you do for the HR fraternity. I always tell people that the HR fraternity in Ghana is heavily because nowadays there's a lot of information, especially from the HR Certification Center. There's a lot of information getting out there to help your practice. And if you are here, you want to join an association that will help you in knowledge sharing, that will help you to leverage as an HR practitioner of certified HRs. They are on LinkedIn. You can follow them on LinkedIn. You have all the information you need to know about them on LinkedIn. So you can just or get in touch with them and be part of that discussion. So thank you very much. Let me just take some few comments here and then we'll be out of here. Thanks, Doreen. Great presentation with excellent submission. Also, some of us are learning it for the future. Not it's one, it will come very soon. We hope you practice it and you don't forget. Great presentation. I missed from the beginning. Can we have the slides shared, please? Hey, Nana, if you want slides, but Nana, you can have this. It will be available anytime you come to our platform. You have it there, so we are not deleting. It's available anytime. You can just visit us here and watch it again. I enjoyed this session. Thank you very much, Doreen. Can we have the PPT sent to us, please? Peter, I would say no, it can't be sent, but it's available here. Anytime you come to our LinkedIn platform, you can get the discussion available. Clara says, great discussion. Thank you for sharing. So thank you all for joining. You are the ones who make our programs better. You make it interactive. Because when you come here, you communicate with us, you share whatever that you have learned, and we are very grateful. We'll certainly come with another session that will impact your lives. But in the meantime, do want to follow us on our social media platforms. We have a lot of valuable content out there, and do want to share this broadcast with your colleagues, anyone who you think should listen to this. So thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. D, for your time. And I'm sure we'll be back here some other time, not too long from now.
Absolutely, Pabna. Thank you.
All right. So it's bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.